I should have known something was up the night Knox locked the front doors and didn't turn the lights back on. It was almost 10 p.m., the gym technically closed, and I was the only one still there. That wasn't unusual for me. I liked working out late, fewer people, less staring, less small talk. Plus, if I'm being honest, I liked the way Knox's voice dropped a little when it was just the two of us. Knox had been my trainer for 3 months. Ex-Marine build. Tall, broad shoulders. Sleeves always rolled just high enough to show the ink crawling up his forearms. He had that calm, controlled energy like he was always measuring something. Usually my form. Sometimes me. Last set, Ryder, he called from across the floor. I was on the bench, chest already shaking from the previous reps. You said that 2 sets ago. And you're still alive, he replied, walking over. So clearly I underestimated you. Good, he said quietly. Not loud trainer voice. Just for me. You're stronger than you think. That was his thing. He didn't just count reps. He got in your head in a good way. Pushed you. Challenged you. Looked at you like he already knew what you were capable of. The first time I met him, I thought he was intimidating as hell. The kind of guy who probably dated fitness models and had zero patience for awkward guys like me. But Knox surprised me. He remembered small details. Asked about my job. Teased me about my obsession with iced coffee. Once, when I came in looking wrecked after a rough week, he didn't push me harder. He adjusted the session, focused on mobility, and told me to breathe through it. He noticed things. And lately, I started noticing things. That night, after my last set, I sat up slowly, wiping sweat from my forehead. The gym was quiet now. The music had stopped. The cleaning crew hadn't come in yet. You're staying late again? I asked, glancing around. Knox checked his watch. Yeah. You live here or something? He smirked. Something like that. I grabbed my water bottle and stood, legs still shaky. You don't have to babysit me, you know? I can lock up after I leave. I know, he said, but he didn't move. Instead, he walked past me toward the front, keys jangling in his hand. I watched as he locked the glass doors. Then he reached up and switched off half the overhead lights, leaving the place dimmer, quieter. My stomach flipped. I said lightly, trying to keep it casual. That's dramatic. He turned back toward me, hands resting on his hips. In the softer lighting, his features looked sharper, more defined, less like a public trainer persona and more like just a man standing in front of me. Ryder, he said, and there was something different in his voice. No edge, no teasing, just steady. Yeah. He walked back across the floor, slow, deliberate steps. I felt my pulse in my throat. You've been working hard, he said. Really hard. Is that a compliment or a threat? He huffed a quiet laugh. It's me saying you're ready. For what? He stopped about a foot away from me, close enough that I had to tilt my head slightly to meet his eyes. For something more personalized. The words landed heavier than they should have. I already pay you for personal training, I said, trying to sound normal. My brain stalled. Was this still about fitness? Because the air didn't feel like it was about fitness. Knox, I swallowed. What are you saying? He studied my face like he was searching for hesitation, or fear, or maybe permission. I'm saying, he replied quietly, that sometimes progress isn't just physical. Sometimes it's about trust, about pushing boundaries safely. My heart was pounding now. There was an undercurrent in his tone, controlled but charged. And you think I trust you? I asked. I think, he said, stepping just a fraction closer. You wouldn't still be here if you didn't. He wasn't wrong. Could have left. I should have left, maybe, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed rooted in place, hyper-aware of the space between us shrinking. What would this personal session involve? I asked, forcing a small smile. His eyes darkened, not in a dangerous way, just honest. Stretching, he said first. I raised an eyebrow. Breath work, he continued. And learning how to handle pressure without tensing up. That did not sound like lunges. My chest felt tight, but not from the workout. And if I say no? I asked quietly. Then we unlock the doors, you go home, and we pretend I never asked. His voice was steady. No pressure. The irony of that word hung between us. I exhaled slowly. And if I say yes? Knox's jaw flexed slightly, just a flicker of tension. Then, he said, we see how far you're willing to go. Silence swallowed the room. I'd had crushes before. Fantasies. Late-night what-ifs. But standing there, in the dim glow of the closed gym, with Knox looking at me like that, it didn't feel like fantasy. Felt real. Terrifyingly real. I licked my lips, buying time. My voice came out softer than I intended. This stays between us? His answer didn't hesitate. Always. I searched his face one last time for arrogance, for manipulation, for anything that felt wrong. All I saw was intensity, and something else. Hope. My pulse thundered in my ears. Okay, I said, just one word. But it changed everything. The second I said, okay, the energy between us shifted. Not explosive, not reckless, just heavier. Knox didn't grin, didn't celebrate. If anything, he looked more focused, like he understood the weight of what I'd agreed to. Locker room's empty, he said quietly. More privacy. My throat went dry. I followed him. The sound of our footsteps echoed faintly against the rubber flooring as we crossed the gym. The overhead lights hummed. Half the place was in shadow now, the mirrors reflecting dim outlines of equipment and our silhouettes moving past them. When we pushed through the locker room doors, the air felt cooler. The fluorescent lights were still on in here, but softer than the main floor. Rows of lockers, benches, the faint scent of disinfectant and soap. Knox turned the corner and stopped near the stretching mats against the wall. He faced me fully now. You nervous? He asked. Yes, I admitted. He nodded once. Good. I blinked. Good. Nervous means you care. He stepped closer, not invading, just present. Solid. Grounded. This doesn't happen unless you want it to, he said. At any point you say stop. We stop. Clear, clear, I repeated. He studied me one more time like he was checking for cracks in my resolve. Then he gestured toward the mat. Shoes off. The command sent a small jolt through me. I unlaced them, hands slightly unsteady. My brain was racing. Is this still stretching? Is this a test? Is he messing with me? But my body was tuned entirely to him. He knelt first, calm and deliberate, then motioned for me to sit across from him. Legs out, he instructed. I did. Hamstrings get tight when you hold tension, he said, especially in guys who are used to controlling everything. I don't control everything. His mouth twitched faintly. You try to. That hit too close. Breathe, he murmured. I inhaled, shaky. Again. I did. Now lean forward slowly. I folded at the hips. He kept light pressure on my ankles to steady me. Don't force it, he said. He continued. I see it when you squat. I swallowed. You notice a lot. It's my job. But the way he said it felt layered. You're shaking, he observed quietly. Because this is insane, I muttered. A low chuckle vibrated in his chest. Is it? Yes. Do you want me to stop? That question again. The out. I searched myself quickly. Fear? A little. Regret? No. No, I said. Hands behind your head, he instructed. My pulse skyrocketed. Knox. Trust. God. I lifted my arms, interlacing my fingers behind my head. This stretch opens your chest now. Counteracts all that time hunched over your desk. My chest expanded. My breathing deepened involuntarily. Good, he murmured. Silence settled again, but it felt different now. Less charged. More comfortable. Like we'd shifted from anticipation into something real enough to sit inside without panicking. So, I said after a moment, do all your clients get after-hours emotional development sessions? He snorted. You're the only one who stays late enough to find out. That's not reassuring. It should be. I smiled despite myself. We stood there for another quiet second before Knox reached past me to the locker door, grabbing my gym bag and handing it over. Walk you out? He asked. I took the bag, fingers brushing his briefly. Yeah. The gym felt different on the way back through. Same equipment, same dim lights, but now every reflection in the mirrors held a secret version of the night that had just happened. At the front doors, Knox unlocked them but didn't open them yet. Instead, he turned to me. This doesn't change how I train you, he said. Oh, thank God, I deadpanned. Because my squat still isn't great. He laughed, shaking his head. Then his expression softened again. But it might change how I look at you. My pulse skipped. How's that? He held my gaze steadily. Less like potential, he said. More like possibility. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because anything dramatic had happened after I left the gym. Knox hadn't texted me 100 times. There wasn't some immediate fallout or spiral of regret. It was quieter than that. I got home, showered, stood under the waterway longer than necessary, replaying every second in my head. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, phone resting on my chest, debating whether texting him would be too much, too eager, too awkward. Before I could decide, my phone buzzed. Knox, you get home safe? I stared at the message for a full 10 seconds like it might disappear. Then I smiled. Me? Yeah. Still alive after your stretching session. The typing bubble appeared almost instantly. Knox, high praise. I hesitated, thumbs hovering. There were 100 things I could say. What was that? Do you do this often? What are we now? Instead, I typed the most honest thing. Me? I liked it. The bubble took longer this time. Long enough for doubt to creep in. Then, Knox, good. I did too. Simple. No over-explaining. No dramatics. Just real. I rolled onto my side, grinning into my pillow like an idiot. Me? So what now? A minute passed. 2. Then, Knox, now we don't rush. We train tomorrow like normal. And we see how you feel when it's not midnight and emotionally charged. I laughed out loud. That was such a Knox answer. Grounded. Practical. Annoyingly reasonable. Me? You're very emotionally responsible for someone who locked me in a gym. 3 dots appeared. Knox, I locked the door. You stayed. Fair. Me? Touch gratka. I set my phone down after that, heart lighter than it had been in a while. Not because I suddenly knew what this was, but because I didn't have to figure it out alone. The next afternoon, I almost turned around in the parking lot, which was ridiculous. It was just the gym, my routine. But everything felt different now. I sat in my car watching people come and go, psyching myself up like I was about to walk into an exam instead of leg day. What if he acted distant? What if he acted normal? What if I read too much into everything? Get it together, Ryder? I muttered, grabbing my bag. Inside, the gym buzzed with its usual energy. Music pumping, weights clanging, people chatting between sets. Normal, comforting. And then I saw him. Knox stood near the squat racks, talking to another client. Focused, professional, exactly how he always looked. For a split second, I wondered if I'd imagined the entire night. Then his eyes lifted, found mine, and softened. Not dramatically, not enough for anyone else to notice. But I did. A small nod, a ghost of a smile. My chest loosened instantly. Okay, we were good. I warmed up on the treadmill, trying to act like my brain wasn't hyper-aware of Knox's presence across the floor. Every laugh he gave another client, every instruction, every time he moved. Eventually, he walked over, tablet in hand like always. Ryder, he said casually. Ready to suffer? There he is, I replied. Thought you might ghost me and flee the country. Tempting, he said. But paperwork is annoying. I laughed, the tension cracking. And just like that, it felt normal. But underneath normal was something new. A current. We moved through the session like we always did, warm-up, mobility, working sets, but the small moments felt louder now. The brief brush of his hand correcting my stance. The quiet good after a rep. The way he stayed close while I caught my breath. Not inappropriate, just charged with context. At one point, I failed a rep and dropped the weight back onto the rack with a frustrated groan. I hate this exercise, I muttered. Knox stepped in front of me, arms crossed. You don't hate it, he said. You hate feeling like you're not good at it yet. I blinked. That was rude. It was accurate. I grabbed my water bottle, shaking my head. You do realize you psychoanalyze me between sets, right? He leaned casually against the rack. You realize you invite it? I opened my mouth to argue. Closed it. Damn. He smirked. Come on, he said. One more set. I sighed dramatically but stepped back under the bar. Because that was the thing about Knox. I trusted him. Not just with spotting me physically, but with pushing me, seeing me. And sometime between the last rep and racking the weight, I realized that was the part that scared me most. Not the kiss. Not the attraction. The trust. After the session, I grabbed my bag while Knox wiped down equipment nearby. Clients moved around us, the gym still busy. Public space. Public rules. But when I slung my bag over my shoulder, he stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough. You free this weekend? He asked quietly. My pulse ticked up. Maybe, I said carefully. Why? His gaze held mine. There's a hiking trail about 30 minutes out, he said. Good views. Quiet. This didn't feel like a trainer invitation. You asking me out? I asked. A small smile tugged at his mouth. Yes. No ambiguity. No games. Just yes. My heart did that annoying flip again. I'd like that, I said. And Knox nodded once, satisfied, like that answer meant more than I realized. As I walked out of the gym again, sunlight replacing last night's darkness, one thought followed me. The personal session had started something. But whatever Knox and I were building now was happening wide awake. I spent the rest of that week in a weird state of anticipation. Nothing dramatic happened between Knox and me at the gym. No heavy conversations squeezed between sets. Just normal training. But normal didn't feel normal anymore. Felt like standing on the edge of something. We texted here and there, nothing constant. Nothing obsessive. A meme about leg day. A photo he sent of the trailhead sign with Saturday. 10 a.m. underneath. Me replying with, I will complain the entire time. His answer, that's expected. By Friday night, my nerves were buzzing. Because this wasn't a late gym encounter fueled by dim lights and adrenaline. This was daylight. Plan. A date. I stood in my apartment staring at my closet like clothing choices suddenly carried life-altering consequences. Why am I like this? I muttered, holding up 2 identical black shirts. Eventually I gave up and picked something simple: gray tee, joggers, hoodie. Casual enough to not look like I tried too hard. Put together enough to not look like I rolled out of bed. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. The drive out of the city felt longer than 30 minutes, mostly because my brain wouldn't shut up. What if it's awkward? What if we only work in gym lighting? What if this is just curiosity for him? I pulled into the small gravel lot and immediately spotted Knox's truck. Great. No backing out now. He was leaning against the hood when I got out of my car, sunglasses on, coffee in hand like he'd been standing there for hours looking annoyingly effortless. You're early, I said. You're late, he replied. I checked my phone. It's 9:58. Late. I rolled my eyes, but the smile was automatic. Up close, without gym noise and movement around us, Knox felt different. Still Knox, but quieter. More open somehow. You ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. The trail started easy, wide path, soft incline, trees filtering the morning sun into shifting patches of light, birds somewhere overhead, occasional distant voices from other hikers. We walked side by side, comfortable silence settling in quickly. It wasn't forced, just calm. After a few minutes, Knox handed me the extra coffee he'd been carrying. I blinked. You brought me caffeine? You're predictable. I accepted it, trying not to smile too obviously. Careful, I said. I might think you like me. He didn't hesitate. I do. The simplicity of that nearly tripped me over a root. I recovered quickly, sipping coffee to buy time. Well, I said lightly, that's inconvenient. For you. For my emotional stability. He laughed, the sound carrying easily through the trees. We walked a little farther before the conversation shifted naturally. Work stories, childhood towns, random music tastes, things we'd brushed past before but never really explored. Turns out Knox grew up in a small coastal town, moved around a lot after joining the military, and landed here almost accidentally. I stayed, he said, kicking a rock off the path, because it felt quieter in my head. That felt important. And the gym? I asked. Structure, he said. Helping people build something instead of break it. I glanced at him. There was more to that sentence. But I didn't push. The trail narrowed as we climbed, trees thinning enough to reveal glimpses of the valley below. My breathing picked up slightly, not dramatic, but noticeable. Knox slowed his pace automatically. "I'm not fragile," I said. "I know," he replied. "But you pretend you don't need pacing." I huffed. "You're very observant for someone who just counts reps." "That's what you think I do?" I smirked. "Is this where you reveal you're secretly a therapist?" "No," he said. "Just someone who pays attention." That again. Tension. It wasn't flashy, but it was powerful. Eventually we reached a clearing where the trail opened onto a rocky overlook. The city stretched faintly in the distance, framed by rolling hills and endless sky. "Okay," I admitted, stepping forward. This was worth leaving my apartment. Knox leaned against a rock nearby, watching me take in the view rather than staring at the view himself. "You hike often?" I asked. "Used to," he said. "Fell out of it." "Why?" He shrugged. "Life gets loud." I nodded, understanding more than I wanted to. We stood there quietly for a moment, wind brushing through the grass around us. Then Knox spoke. "You've been in your head all morning." I groaned. "I hate that you can tell." "You want to say it?" I hesitated. But that was the thing about this space: no gym mirrors, no audience, no late-night haze. Just honesty. "I don't know what this is," I admitted. Knox didn't react defensively. "Neither do I," he said. That surprised me. "But," he continued, "I know I like spending time with you. I know I'm not playing around. And I know I don't want you feeling like this is some temporary curiosity." My chest tightened slightly. "Because it's not?" "No." The certainty in that single word grounded something inside me. I looked out at the horizon again, processing. "So what are we doing?" I asked softly. Knox stepped closer, not invading, just present beside me. "We're learning each other," he said, "without pressure to define it before it exists." That felt frustratingly wise. "You always talk like this?" I asked. "Only when I mean it." I turned toward him. The sunlight caught in his hair, softening the edges that usually felt so controlled inside the gym. "You're very different outside of work," I said. "So are you." "Oh, you laugh more," he said. "And you stop pretending you're fine when you're thinking too much." I stared at him. That was unfairly accurate. "Rude," I murmured. He smiled faintly. The moment stretched quiet, warm, real. No dramatic move. No scripted romantic beat. Just two people standing close enough to feel the possibility between them. After a second, I nudged his shoulder lightly. "So," I said, "do all your clients get scenic emotional clarity hikes?" He chuckled. "You're still the only one staying late enough to find out." I smiled, looking back at the view. And for the first time since that night in the gym, my thoughts weren't racing ahead. They were right here, on this overlook, with Knox beside me, and whatever this was, felt like it was unfolding exactly how it needed to. The hike back down felt lighter, not because anything huge had changed, but because something had settled. We weren't pretending it was casual. We weren't rushing to label it either. We were just choosing to keep showing up. About halfway down the trail, Knox reached for my hand. Not dramatically, not with a speech, just a quiet, natural movement as we stepped over a rocky patch. His fingers laced with mine like it was the most normal thing in the world. And for a split second, my brain short-circuited. Not because I didn't want it, because I did, because it felt easy. We walked like that for a while. No big conversation, just the sound of gravel under our shoes and the occasional brush of wind through the trees. At one point, I glanced down at our hands. "You realize this is very public," I said. "Yeah." "You don't seem concerned." "I'm not." That answer was simple, steady. It wasn't defiant. It wasn't performative. It was just true. And that did something to me. "You always this calm about things?" I asked. "Not always." He squeezed my hand once. "But with you?" "Yeah." I didn't know what to do with that, so I deflected. "Must be my sparkling personality." "That's part of it." "Oh? What's the other part?" He glanced at me sideways, mouth curving. "You're brave." I almost stumbled. "Brave? You let yourself feel things," he said. "Even when it scares you." I let out a quiet laugh. You have a very generous interpretation of my overthinking. Overthinking isn't the opposite of brave, he replied. Avoiding is. That one landed deeper than I expected. By the time we reached the parking lot again, the sun was higher, the world louder. Other hikers moving around. Car doors slamming. Someone's dog barking. Reality creeping back in. Knox dropped my hand when we reached his truck. Not awkwardly, just naturally as space shifted. So, I said, leaning against my car door. That was good. Yeah, he agreed. Silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like we were both deciding the same thing at the same time. I don't want this to just live in the gym, I said finally. It won't. And I don't want it to be hidden. Knox's jaw tightened slightly, not defensive, but thoughtful. It won't be, he said, but we'll be smart. Smart how? He leaned back against his truck, folding his arms loosely. At the gym, I'm still your trainer. That doesn't blur. Outside of that, we figure it out. That made sense. It was responsible, which was very on brand for him. So we're dating? I asked because I couldn't help myself. His eyes flickered with amusement. If you want to call it that. I'm just checking, I said. Don't want to accidentally introduce you as my emotionally intelligent gym acquaintance. He laughed. Yeah, he said. We're dating. There it was. Simple. Grounded. Real. Something in my chest unclenched. He stepped closer, not rushing, just closing distance. You good? He asked quietly. Yeah, I said honestly. I am. He brushed his knuckles lightly along my jaw, the touch brief but warm. I'm not going anywhere, Ryder. The way he said it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a promise carved in stone. It was just intention, and that was enough. The first real test came a week later. Friday evening. Gym still busy. I was mid-set on the bench when two women nearby started talking loud enough to carry. Is that Knox's client? One of them whispered. Yeah, he's hot. Doesn't he ever date anyone? I focused on the bar above me, pretending I couldn't hear. But then, I heard he keeps things professional. My chest tightened slightly. Professional. Knox stepped up behind me to spot the weight. Last rep, he said, calm and focused. I pushed through it, racked the bar, and sat up. He handed me a towel without comment. But I could see it, the awareness in his eyes. He'd heard it too. After the session, as I grabbed my bag, he walked with me toward the front. Those same two women were near the smoothie bar. And for half a second, I felt that flicker of doubt. Was this going to be secret? Was I supposed to walk out alone? Knox didn't hesitate. As we reached the door, he placed his hand lightly at the small of my back. Not hidden, not subtle, just there. The gesture wasn't exaggerated. Most people probably wouldn't think twice about it. But the women noticed. I saw it in the way their expressions shifted. Knox opened the door for me like always. Outside, cool air hitting my face, I turned to him. You didn't have to do that, I said quietly. Yeah, he replied. I did. I studied him. You're sure? He stepped closer, voice low but steady. I'm not interested in hiding you. The words hit deeper than I expected. Not possessive. Not territorial. Just clear. I let out a slow breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Okay, and as I walked to my car, something felt solid for the first time. This wasn't a late-night impulse. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't a fantasy built on dim lights and adrenaline. It was Knox choosing me in daylight. And for the first time in a long time, I felt chosen back. For a while, things felt almost easy, which should have made me suspicious. Knox and I settled into a rhythm that didn't feel forced. We kept the gym professional. If anything, he was stricter with me. You're not getting special treatment, he said one afternoon after making me redo a full set because my form slipped. I'm literally dating you, I groaned. And you're still dropping your left shoulder. Annoyingly fair. Outside the gym, though, it was different. We did normal things. Coffee runs. Late dinners after his evening shift. One night we ended up on my couch watching some terrible action movie. My legs stretched across his lap while he absent-mindedly traced circles on my ankle. It wasn't explosive or dramatic. It was comfortable. And that scared me more than the locker room ever did. because comfortable meant real, and real meant something to lose. The shift happened on a Tuesday night. Knox had come over after work, tired in a way that went deeper than just physical exhaustion. I could see it in the way his shoulders sat lower, the way he moved slower. "You good?" I asked, tossing him a beer. He caught it easily. "Yeah." That was his default answer. We sat on the balcony outside my apartment, city lights flickering below. The air was cool, quiet. After a few minutes of silence, he spoke. "Got an email today. Good email or bad email?" He stared out over the street. "Old contact. Military." My stomach tightened slightly. I didn't know a lot about that chapter of his life. He talked about it rarely and vaguely. "What kind of contact?" I asked carefully. "Security contract overseas. Short term. 6 months." The word overseas echoed louder than it should have. "Oh," he nodded once. "Good money," he added. "Structured. Clear objective." That last part sounded important. "And you're considering it?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. "That world makes sense to me," he said finally. "It's loud, but it's predictable." "And this?" I asked quietly. He glanced at me. "This isn't predictable." There it was. The part we hadn't said out loud. I swallowed. "Do you want to go?" He hesitated. "That's the problem," he admitted. "I don't know." The city hummed below us. I stared at the condensation sliding down my beer bottle, trying to sort through the sudden weight in my chest. "How soon would you have to decide?" I asked. "Couple weeks." That wasn't long. Not in real-world time. In emotional time, it was a blink. "And if you go?" I pressed. 6 months, he repeated. 6 months of time zones, distance, uncertainty. 6 months when we'd barely even defined what we were. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. "I don't want to be the reason you don't take something important," I said. He turned fully toward me then. "You're not a weight, Ryder." "That's not what I meant." "I know." His voice softened. "But don't shrink yourself into something optional." That hit harder than I expected. I wasn't trying to manipulate him. I wasn't trying to anchor him. But I also didn't want to pretend this didn't matter. "What do you want?" I asked him. Not strategically. Not defensively. Just honestly. Knox looked at me for a long second. Then he did something rare. He didn't answer with logic. He answered with vulnerability. "I want something that doesn't feel temporary," he said quietly. "I've done temporary. I'm good at temporary." The air between us shifted. "And us?" I asked, voice softer now. His jaw flexed slightly. "You don't feel temporary." That cracked something open in my chest. Fear and hope tangled together. "Then why are we even talking about you leaving?" I asked. "Because I've spent most of my adult life choosing what's stable over what's uncertain," he replied. "And you're uncertain." I let out a small, humorless laugh. "Wow, romantic." He reached for my hand across the small table, fingers warm and steady. "I don't mean fragile," he said. "I mean real. Real is unpredictable. It changes you." I met his eyes. "And that scares you?" "Yes." The honesty of that stunned me. Knox wasn't the kind of guy who admitted fear easily. "You don't have to decide tonight," I said quietly. "I know. But if you go," I added, "don't make it about avoiding something here." He studied me carefully. "You think that's what I'm doing?" "I think," I said slowly, "you're used to environments where emotions are background noise. And this is loud." His thumb brushed over my knuckles. "You're loud," he corrected gently. I huffed a quiet laugh. "Only emotionally." He leaned closer then, resting his forehead briefly against mine. "I don't want to run from this," he said. "Then don't." Silence wrapped around us again. Not tense, just heavy with choice. After a moment, he pulled back slightly. "I haven't said yes," he reminded me. "I know. And I haven't said no." "I know that too." He squeezed my hand once more. "I need a few days to think." "Take them." I meant it. Because if this was going to be real, if this was going to last, it couldn't be built on fear of loss. It had to be chosen. The next week felt different. Not distant, but thoughtful. Knox trained me like always. We went to dinner once, texted like normal. But under it all was that quiet countdown. And every time I looked at him, I wondered, was I about to become another temporary chapter? Or was he about to choose something new for the first time? I didn't know. But I did know one thing. If Knox walked away because it was easier, I wouldn't chase him. I wanted to be chosen, not protected from. The decision came on a Thursday. I knew before he even said anything. Knox texted me mid-afternoon. Can you come by the gym after closing? My stomach dropped immediately. Full circle. After closing. Just like the night this started. I spent the rest of the day pretending to work while my brain ran through every possible outcome. If he was leaving, I wouldn't beg. I told myself that already. I'd meant it. But meaning something and feeling it are two different things. By 9:45 p.m., I was standing inside the quiet gym again. Lights dimmed. Equipment still. The same low hum in the air. Knox was near the front desk, leaning against it like he had that first night. He looked steady, but his jaw was tight. You're dramatic with the after-hours thing, I said lightly as I approached. He didn't smile. My chest tightened. Ryder, he said. Okay. Here it was. I crossed my arms loosely, bracing without meaning to. You decided, I said. He nodded once. Silence stretched for half a second too long. I turned it down. The words hit me like a delayed impact. You what? I turned it down, he repeated, slower this time. This morning. My brain scrambled to catch up. You're not going? No. The tension I'd been carrying all week cracked open so fast it almost made me dizzy. Knox. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. That was 6 months. Good money. Structure. I know. You don't strike me as impulsive. I'm not. I searched his face. Then why? He stepped closer, not intense, not dramatic, just honest. Because I realized something, he said. I've spent most of my life choosing what's safe. Overseas security contracts are not safe. He shook his head faintly. Safe emotionally, he clarified. Clear mission, clear ending, no variables. And this, I asked quietly. This is a variable. I let out a small, shaky laugh. That's not exactly reassuring. His eyes softened. But it's worth it. The simplicity of that made my throat tight. You barely know how this ends, I said. Exactly. That hung between us. I don't want something temporary, he continued. And I don't want to run just because something feels unpredictable. My chest felt like it was physically expanding. You're choosing this? I asked. I'm choosing you, he corrected. That did it. That was the sentence that landed fully. Not dramatic. Not loud. You're sure? I asked quietly. I've never been more sure about something that doesn't come with instructions, he said. That sounded exactly like him. Careful. Measured. Honest. I shook my head slightly, half smiling. You're aware this means you don't get to emotionally detach if it gets complicated. His mouth curved faintly. I don't plan to. And you don't get to retreat into structure when I overthink something. I won't. And if I panic, I stay. The word stay settled deep in my chest. Knox, I said softly. This isn't going to be perfect. I don't want perfect, he replied. I want real. There it was again. Real. Unpredictable. Alive. I murmured. This started with you offering a personal session. He huffed softly. Technically, yes. And now, he really looked at me. Now it's not a session, he said. It's a partnership. That word settled into place. Not fantasy. Not fling. Partnership. I stepped back slightly, studying him. So what happens next? He smiled, a rare, full one that softened every sharp edge he carried. Now, he said, we build something. Slowly, I teased. Deliberately. Emotionally responsible? I added. He laughed quietly. Unfortunately, I shook my head. I can't believe you turned down 6 months overseas for something you can't predict. I didn't turn it down for uncertainty, he said. I raised an eyebrow. No, I turned it down because this feels like progress. And I'm not walking away from that. Progress. That was our language. Growth. Trust. Not rushing. Not hiding. I leaned into his touch. Good, I said softly. He tilted his head. Good. Because I wasn't going to chase you across the world. His smile widened slightly. I know. And somehow, that made it even better. Outside, the city moved like always. People living their lives. Noise and lights and endless motion. Inside the quiet gym where this all started, Knox reached for my hand without hesitation. No dim lighting needed. No secrecy. Just choice. And as we stood there wide awake, fully aware, no countdown ticking anymore, I realized something simple and terrifying and steady all at once. The most intense part of that personal session wasn't the kiss. It was the moment he decided to stay.